You know, not too many years ago when I was on the street as a paramedic, I suffered some of these repetitive stress problems. And I can tell you, living with chronic pain is no fun at all. And those of you who have had it could agree with me. But this is one of my favorite segments in any type of OSHA health and safety program, and that's how to prevent it from happening in the first place. This next segment that we're going to be looking at is talking about taking those breaks we mentioned earlier and how to actually do some of those stretching break exercises. So take the breaks, and while you're taking the breaks, stand up. Stand and stretch and move around. This stretching and moving around provides rest and allows the muscles enough time to actually begin to circulate blood flow, to bring oxygen in, take carbon dioxide out. It gets lactic acid pulled out of the muscle fibers and brings nutrition back into those muscle fibers, tendons, and ligaments. The tendons and ligaments and cartilage do not circulate blood very well anyway. So you can imagine how bad it is when we take a lot of time in between stretches and in between movement. It's only going to make them even more stiff and less able to be stretched. So if you're doing the types of activities where you're using your hands a lot, substitute some of these keystrokes for mousing tasks, such as a control or a command shortcut, especially if your job is highly mouse intensive. If you're having to do things like stapling, alternate your tasks whenever possible. Mix in some non-computer related tasks into the workday. And this always encourages body movement and the use of different muscle groups. Remember, moving and stretching, keeping your ligaments, tendons, cartilage, and your muscle fibers stretched and open, triggering that vascular dilation and increasing heart rate by deep breathing, stretching, and moving around brings back in the circulation that's going to be required in order to prevent long-term problems with soft tissue injuries. Now, in addition to taking occasional breaks and changing up your tasks, where you place the keyboard and mouse will greatly reduce your risk of repetitive stress injuries. Remember, a keyboard or a pointer mouse that's too close or too far away may cause you to assume a really awkward posture, such as reaching with your arm, leaning forward, and then having that extreme elbow angle. You should really place the keyboard at a comfortable distance that will maintain a neutral body posture. Elbows should be about the same height as the keyboard, and your elbows should hang comfortably to the sides of your body. Your shoulders should be relaxed, and your wrists should not bend any more up or down to either side during the keyboard use. They really should just be able to stay relaxed and neutral the whole time you're using that keyboard. In addition to the keyboard distance, you can reduce a lot of awkward wrist angles by adjusting the chair height or the work surface height. Lowering or raising the keyboard or chair to achieve a neutral wrist posture is an essential way to prevent these postural strains. A keyboard tray may be needed if the work surface or chair can't be properly adjusted. Remember, if everything that you do to reorganize your workstation has been done, but you still cannot avoid these postural strains, this is going to be the time that you need to talk to a supervisor or an employer about getting some work engineer controls, and those could include new desks, new chairs, or some type of ergonomic adjunct that's going to be able to help you to get into a good neutral posture. Wrist rests can also help reduce awkward angles. Your hand should be able to move freely and be elevated above your wrist and the palm rest while you're typing. So when resting on the pad, you should really be able to contact the heel of your palm of your hand, not your wrist. Match the wrist support to the width and height and slope of the front edge of the keyboard, keeping in mind that the goal is to keep your wrist postures as straight as possible. Elevate the back or the front of your keyboard to achieve a neutral wrist posture. One special note I wanted to add to this is that we're seeing a lot more touchpad surfaces on laptops, as well as even adjunct pads that are getting away from the roller ball as well as the infrared tracking system. There's even mistakes we can make with that, though. It's really important for us to understand that if we're working on a laptop or even on an adjunct touchpad surface, maybe you're even in graphics design and you're using something that's a lot like a digital notepad or tablet, it's still going to be really important to remember to keep your wrists, joints, hands, arms, elbows in natural, neutral positions. So if we're resting our wrists or the pads of our palms on the actual notepad or on the laptop while we're using our fingers to actually do the touchpad functions, this still could lead to some type of postural strain and then lead to some of those neurological deficits, the tendinitis, the carpal tunnel, and some of those types of problems that we talked about earlier. So keeping our hands off the surface and lightly touching with the tips of the fingers or the pads of the fingers in, again, a neutral, a very natural position, avoiding strikes and things that are unnatural are all going to help us to avoid some common injuries and common symptoms related to those types of postural strains. The whole point of this ergonomics series is to help all of us avoid serious problems, needless pain, and premature injuries. Reducing the repetition by properly arranging the workstation and its components, taking breaks frequently, especially when you start to feel that type of repetitive stress symptom, is going to be essential. Looking away, stretching, getting up, taking a walk, changing up your work tasks, they can all still be very efficient and effective and productive in your workplace. And these brief pauses provide time for the muscles and the tendons to recover, and for you not only to go home as healthy as when you came, but maybe even healthier.